Hello and welcome to another episode of Discover with Spinetti. Today is May 19th. It is episode number 122. And boy, are you in for a ride today. We're talking about magic pills. We're talking about the magic pill that may resolve all of your problems like that. It's going to be interesting today. I'm going to go through it rather quickly, just like I usually do. So, problems. What are problems? Us humans have certain problems. So I went to the trusty computer and I did a little bit of research. And I came up with the top problems that us humans face. And guess what? The number one problem that we all face, apparently, is mental illness. The second one is financial. Third is relational, like, divorce rates and whatnot. So I started thinking about it. I said, mental illness. Like, I understand illness. Obviously, I'm a dentist. I understand illness. I've studied psychology. I did a minor in psychology. So I understand mental disorders and whatnot. I know about the DSM. But I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, the DSM is what psychologists and psychiatrists rely on to diagnose patients in order for them to be treated. And that's mental illness. Right? Remember, number one problem that us humans face. Okay. So I started thinking about it and I said, okay. I said, if the DSM is the thing that psychologists, psychiatrists use to diagnose humans and then to give them treatment based on diagnosis, because in medicine you can't treat without diagnosis. It's literally called a diagnostic manual, right? DSM. All right. So this thing here was developed in 1952. Okay? I'm talking slow because I want you to absorb this. 1952 is when it first came on. That's DSM-1. Right now we're on DSM-5. We're due for DSM-6. Okay? Because around every 13 years or so, we get an upgrade of DSM of all the disorders. Okay? All right. Now, let's cut to the chase, shall we? So I started comparing. I compared the top 10 disorders in 1952 compared to the top 10 disorders in 2013, which is the most recent DSM. And then I compared the treatments for each one of those disorders. Okay? We're still stuck on mental illness. Okay, number one thing that us humans face as our biggest problem, mental illness. All right? Okay. Let's go through a little bit of data, shall we? All right. Number one illness, believe it or not, number one illness in 1952 DSM and 2013 DSM is schizophrenia. Okay? Schizophrenia is when you have, it's basically when you can't think right. You think voices are talking to you. You can't really function properly. You can't really be in society, basically. Okay. That's generally speaking, that's what schizophrenia is. Okay. It's not what people think. There's people think that schizo, say schizo means that they have multiple personalities. That's a different disorder. Okay. Don't mix the two. Okay. So the first one is schizophrenia. Okay. The second one is depression on 1952. The second one is for DSM-5, 2013, is bipolar disorder. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop there because I'm going to get to the other thing in a second. Now, if you were to compare the treatments for the top 10 disorders in 1952 versus 2013, let me read it to you, shall we? Okay. I'm going to go from 1 to 10 without telling you about the disorders. And I'm going to go from 1 to 10 for 2013 without reading the disorders. But then I'm going to tell you some of the treatment recommendations. Okay? Does that sound fair? Okay. Number one, 1952, treatment. Number one disorder, a mental disorder, 1952, treatment, psychotherapy. Number one disorder in 2013, the most recent DSM, medications, antipsychotic medications. I think you know where I'm going with this. Number two, psychotherapy in 1952. 2013, medication. Number three, psychotherapy. 2013, medication. Number four, psychotherapy. 1952. 2013, medication. By the way, that's anxiety. So it's basically what I'm trying to get to here is in 1952, and here's the thing that you don't know. In 1952, there wasn't any funding from pharmaceutical companies into the DSM, okay? Because the American Psychiatric basically association, they take funding. They started taking funding from corporations such as pharmaceutical industries. But this wasn't the case in DSM-1, right? So it started around DSM-3. So, obviously with funding, when corporations are funding research, there's going to be bias in that research. There's going to be bias in the findings. There's going to be bias in how they're going to be treated because there's a conflict of interest. But despite this conflict of interest, the APA, the American Psychiatric Association or psychology, anyway, it's called APA, look it up, okay? They take funds from these pharma companies. Well, they take it, put research, and then they come up with all this stuff that now there's recommendations. And guess what? The majority of them, actually all of them, involve medications. Now remember, this is the number one thing that us humans have problems with: mental illness. Sorry for quotations. I shouldn't have put quotations, but the reason I put quotations is because, like, if you compare the 1952 versus 2013, psychotherapy, all of it, psychotherapy, from schizophrenia to paranoia to anxiety to hysteria to literally personality disorder, depression, psychotherapy. Compared to 2013, meds, just like medications, one after the other. Okay? Is that a coincidence? I mean, I'll leave that up to you. Just gonna put it out there. I didn't make any conclusions. Okay, I didn't make any conclusions. I'm just saying something seems fishy here. Something seems a little bit fishy. Okay? Now, what is psychotherapy? Maybe that's what you're asking yourself. What's psychotherapy, right? Okay. Psychotherapy, in other words, is talk therapy, right? This is when psychiatrists and psychologists are trained to help you investigate your own mind in order for you to develop a different neuronal connection, okay? So what they do is that they're using the healing powers of the brain called neuroplasticity, which is studied to umpteen degrees with regards to neuroplasticity, which is basically a reorganization of your neurons inside your brain to heal yourself. Okay, this is called neuroplasticity. Look it up. Okay, that's how you learn things. Okay, that's how you unlearn things. It's called neuroplasticity. That's how people who go from addiction to non-addiction happens, right? So that's neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is like a thing. It's like a what is it called? Like I don't want to call it fountain of youth, but it's just like magical thing that psychologists and psychiatrists use in order for you and your brain to heal itself. Okay? So this was the number one thing used to treat all of these disorders, top 10 disorders in 1952 DSM. And now it's barely used, right? Because now there's a lot of push towards medications. You make your own conclusions. I'm not here to draw conclusions. I'm just here to just tell you my findings, okay? Now, the other problems that I mentioned were financial, relationship issues, and social issues, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, I started thinking about it, and I said to myself, I said, I wonder if the financial issues and the relational issues, if those were not a problem, or if we knew how to solve them properly, i.e., we had proper education in managing our finances, and two, we had proper education on how to be, good in terms of a relationship. Would that have an effect on our mental health, you think? Again, I'm not drawing any conclusions, but I started thinking to myself, and I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, let's say you had no financial problems, right? Money wasn't an issue, and you know how to manage your money, right? Like, statistically speaking, one of the major reasons for divorce, I think it's the number one, if I'm not mistaken. Well, let's just say the one of the biggest ones, one of the top two, is financial reasons. The reasons why people fight in a relationship is because of mismanagement of money. So if you didn't have any money problems, would you have anything close to having any kind of mental health issues? Again, I'm going to leave that to you, okay? But what is directed to most of human beings nowadays is medication, right? It's not what is the problem. It's let's resolve the symptoms, right? Oh, you're feeling sad, you're depressed, medication. You have this, medication, right? Can't focus, medication. Can't sleep, medication. So, from yesterday, I talked about habit number 1 from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the first habit, and I talked about habit, and I talked about what habit is. And habit is the thing that your brain does to make it go in autopilot. Okay, so when you're driving, you're not thinking about the driving. You're not thinking about checking the mirrors. You're not thinking about how much are you pressing on the gas pedal? When are you going to press on the brakes? You're not thinking about any of that. It's all automatic. Okay, because it's a habit. You've developed it into a habit. Okay, so same thing with these habits. It's kind of like a thing in your brain that if you develop it, you'll just live better. So this is the 7 habits of highly effective people. So it's how to live a better life, basically. So the second habit is, the first one, like I said, is be proactive. I didn't say it. The first one is to be proactive, meaning to always think about what you can do next before a problem happens, right? To be proactive as opposed to being reactive, as opposed to you waiting until a problem happens and then you resolving that problem or you trying to solve that problem once it happens. Being proactive meaning you think about certain problems that may happen and then you preemptively solve them before they even happen, right? That's what proactive, generally speaking, that's what it means. Okay, so the second thing is to begin with the end in mind. Okay, and as Stephen Covey says that everything in our life has 2 creations. 2. The first is in our mind, and the second is physical. So whenever you, for instance, you want to build a house, you have a plan, right? That's what the first creation is. Like basically what he's saying is that you have a plan. But in order for you to have a plan, you'd have to know where you're ending up in, right? Like, so you're visualizing where you're going to be, how you're going to feel, what you're going to have, who you're going to be surrounded with, and all that stuff, all that nice visualization stuff. And then you work backwards. So that's the second habit of being effective. Now, the trap that we all fall into is being somnambulant. I love that word. Is being somnambulant, meaning we are walking around sleepwalking. Okay, we're walking around not knowing why we're doing certain things. We pick up our phone and we're scrolling endlessly on social media without asking ourselves, why did I just do that? Right? Oh, I'm bored. Okay, is this the best way for you to solve your boredom? Don't you have issues that you need to solve first? Yes, but I want to think about it. Well, if you're training yourself, you're habituating yourself, you're making this thing into a habit. Well, guess what? Your problem's not going to go away. Now, the first habit, you're destroying it because you're not being proactive anymore, right? Being proactive means that you are committed and you stick to your commitments. That's basically the essence of being proactive. You have commitments, you stick to them, you don't delay them, right? But in habit 2, now you're not thinking with the end in mind, right? You're not thinking about where you want to be because you just want to push all your problems away. Now you're destroying second habit, which is you're no longer thinking about why you're doing things. You're no longer thinking about, what is it that I want? So this is, and I'm going to come back to the beginning, which is the magic pill. Okay, that's where I started. Magic pill. So the magic pill that is going to get rid of almost all of your problems, according to research, is for you to adopt habit number 2, which is to think with the end in mind. Okay, to begin anything with the end in mind. Now, why does that solve your problem? Because then you start thinking backwards in terms of what you can do, right? Notice what I just said, what you can do to solve your problems that you have right now that you're trying to get out of, right? I mean, there's no human being that doesn't have problems. I mean, if you're a human being, you've got problems, right? So that's what it is. The magic pill is you thinking about the end in mind. So you're beginning the end in mind. When you do that, you're always thinking to yourself, what can I do? Right? You're thinking about more action. What is it that I can do? That didn't work? Cool. Let me try something else. That didn't work? Cool. Let me try something else. That is you thinking with the end in mind. That's the magic pill, right? It's free. It works. Backed by research, a lot of it. So there you have it, folks. You are welcome. I hope you look into the things that I kind of gave you a little bit of glimpse of, because I think it's really interesting for you to know what's going on. And as always, have yourself a wonderful Sunday and keep smiling. Good night.